Good morning to the Citystead.
Now, in permaculture design, something they teach is that you observe the land and you work with what you have.
Say check.
Check.
Snack.
Check.
Binder.
Check, check. B-Day invites. Check.
Water bottle. Water bottle.
Check. What else? That's it. Snow pants. Check. Because it's still super cold.
Well, it's Monday, so I don't need my lunchbox. It's Tuesday. I think we're good.
I think we got everything.
Yep.
Off to a good start this morning. Hopefully. Did you look for cars? You almost crossed the street all looking for cars.
There are no cars.
It's a good thing Dad was here to protect you.
There are no cars. There are no cars.
It's like an ice rink.
Seriously, it is.
Can you get up in there? Whoa, look at that. Super icy. It's a skating rink.
No, just film yourself skating.
Super icy. Ready? And those are some dance moves. You got dance moves like that? No? Let's see them. Those are not good dance moves. That looks like an angry giant stomping around. Like an angry giant stomping around. Hey guys, welcome back to the Citystead. So today I wanted to talk about garden design. Here up in the north, it's still too cold to really be outside planting anything. We're starting to get ready, we're starting seeds, we're starting garden planting, and I'm going to give you something to think about with your garden planting. Now we've battled for a couple years with a problem that we have here on our property, and that is we get a lot of water collection. Now you can see right here, it's kind of hard to tell maybe, but it's all ice. From here all the way over there. We have this one spot in our yard that goes right along here and it kind of swoops back toward the corner of our garden over there. Now, in permaculture design, something they teach is that you observe the land and you work with what you have. Well, our land has two things kind of fighting each other. One of them is this giant trench of water that we get in our low spot, and the other is that this low spot also happens to be where the most sun is throughout the entire day. So we built our garden over here, and for a few years we really battled with the fact that this water could flood at any point in time. I wanted to bring you out here today to show you because it's pretty bad, because we had a lot of snow and then we had a really warm weekend, so it all melted and it's all kind of gathered right down in this one spot, and it froze back because it was really cold this morning. So permaculture will tell you, you observe and then you make your plans after you observe. So we put our garden over there, we were building it up, and it was a little bit higher than this part, which was good and what we needed. The only problem was that it still would flood occasionally on really heavy rain days or spring and fall. So that's when we came up with the idea of using the raised beds, and we switched to raised bed gardening over there. It really keeps a lot of the root base of the plants up out of where the soil would be the most, moist from all the. So there's something to keep in mind as you plan your garden for this year, is think about things that happen in your yard and how you can avoid putting you in a situation to where it would not be beneficial for you. A lot of standing water is not good, so if you have a place that has a lot of standing water, putting raised beds there is a really good thing to think about. And if you can do anything else, maybe you can use that water to your advantage. Maybe we could have built some kind of swell here and use this water to water the garden. Obviously we're working with a city lot here, putting stuff like that in the middle of the yard kind of cuts everything in half, and it would be really limit what we're really doing back here and our abilities to mow grass and all that other kind of stuff that we do. So these are all things that you really need to think about. We have a couple spots where it's kind of low, but this is the most we have a few different low spots. We have this one, we have one toward the back there where it's kind of like a long trench. And I planted everything on the sides of it as to not have it sit in the water. And it might be all right. Like a skating rink out here. So it might be all right if you have plants that like to have the roots really wet a lot of the time. So in our case, what we would do is we would plant those on this outside lane here, where it is lower and the water gathers higher, you know, just more. This is where we put stuff that would like wet feet. Not everything likes wet feet. Things like to be really dry in some points, which in that case we would go further over into the corner of the garden this way or that way. So over there and back here, this part of the garden is the highest points. So anything that needs to have dry roots or don't have roots that are really that long, this is where I plant them because I know it's higher ground than where all this water would gather. And it doesn't really happen often except for in the spring and the fall or super heavy rainfalls, which we haven't had any in the past few years, but we're trying our best to avoid having the possibility of having drowned plants. So some of the problems that we did have before was that we would get drowned plants. We had planted this all when it was just in-ground, tilled the dirt, and we planted flowers. And then this flooded that year, and it drowned out half of our plants. And we lost a lot of vegetables that year. So that's one of the things that happened, and it made us think more about putting in these raised beds. And we also used to get a lot of powdery mildew. Now I've noticed as we've gone to raised beds that our squash doesn't seem to get the powdery mildew anymore. Maybe we're getting better seeds. Could be some of that. It could be that we're thinning the leaves out a little bit more. But I think some of it has to do with the fact that we've moved them into these higher raised beds and they don't sit in the water at all anymore. We also added the trellises to also bring things out of the water. We don't want things running on the ground anymore. So anything running on the ground has a chance of getting wet and moisture buildup, powdery mildew type things. So by trellising a lot of squash and all that different stuff, we've really eliminated a lot of that. And the raised beds, like I said, it really helps keep things, roots up out of the water that don't need to be in the water that much. So as you're planting your garden, this is something to think about, is where you're putting things, where you're making those raised beds at, and anything else that might be involved with where you have a lot of water retention or things in your yard. If you're having a lot of sun, obviously that's the place for your garden. You want to have the most sun throughout the day, like what we have in this spot here. Just for us, unfortunately, it also happened to be the spot where we had the most water catchment. So raised beds solved our problem. Maybe you can do something different. Maybe you got more to work with and you can move things around a little bit different. But just remember to think ahead of time as you're planting your garden this year on where things can go to